Hey everyone, it's Dr. Ramani. Have any of you tried to date after a narcissistic relationship? How did that work out for you? Drop it in the comments and let's talk about that. Folks, it's a wonder any of us are ever able to get back out there at all into the world of dating after a narcissistic relationship. So your willingness to consider how to get back out there and date is its own form of courage. You know my preferred rules on this. Wait 1 year after the narcissistic relationship ends before you get out there dating again, minimum. Healing from a narcissistic relationship is not like healing from an ordinary breakup. It takes time. About a year is about right. And listen, this 1 year rule of mine, it applies to narcissistic relationships that have lasted a year or longer. Now, if you were in more, maybe something that was shorter term, casual dating narcissistic relationship, maybe 6 months or so, then my guidance will get shaped to that the break before dating again needs to be as long as the relationship was. So, for example, if the relationship is 6 months, giving yourself 6 months off, 10 months, 10 months off. But even if the relationship was 10 years long, you don't have to take 10 years off, though it's tempting, just 1 year then. Now that right there, though, is the battle. Just saying to yourself, I am going to give myself a year at least to get reacquainted with myself, fully grieve what happened to me, what I lost, honor my preferences, do things that matter to me. And as you slowly come back into yourself, you are in a better spot to take it slow in a new relationship. But even if you give yourself enough time, it is not easy to get back out there to meet new people. A big issue that many people who are trying to date post-narcissist are facing is that they do face so much pressure by friends, family. I remember one person had told me that they felt pressured by their therapist to get back out there and dating. I guess I'm telling people to not date, so why wouldn't a therapist tell you to do date? But when you say you're cooling your heels for a while or you don't feel ready, you may get pushback and pressure about the whole get back on the horse nonsense, right? That pressure can leave you feeling like maybe there's something wrong with you, and there isn't. Listen, folks, it's difficult to date these days, even if you haven't endured a narcissistic relationship. If you have, it can feel like perilous territory. Then, many of you have the fear of getting trauma bonded again. Now, here's the good news. If you really understand what trauma bonding is before you start dating, you have more of a fighting chance to not succumb to it again. It doesn't feel as magical. You can be more mindful about making justifications and giving too many second chances and enduring things that make you uncomfortable. Trauma bonding does its harm by operating under our awareness. And when you feel deeply and inexplicably drawn to someone in a way that you are not heeding your own values and metrics and limits, that's a sign. Is there a risk? If you've been through a narcissistic relationship and were trauma bonded, is there a risk of being trauma bonded again? Hell yes. And especially if you start dating too fast, or it is a rebound relationship coming right out of that narcissistic one. But if you take your time and are aware of the finer points of trauma bonding as they specifically apply to you, and you date mindfully, you may be able to protect yourself. It still remains a risk out there, but you might be better able to fight the fight. There's also the fear that if you actually do focus on finding someone healthy, that your new relationship may not have the electric zazazoo of the love-bombed excitement you had with the narcissistic person. I get it. Going on the merry-go-round may not seem as fun as the roller coaster at the amusement park, but you can't live on a roller coaster. The sedate, calm, even-keeled nature of a new relationship with a healthy person, a person that doesn't leave you questioning yourself or wondering what's next or full of surprises, you might feel like you're settling, or that maybe that there's something wrong with you, that you need or want drama. Not necessarily so. First of all, remember, love bombing does feel good for a minute. It feels really good. And the up and down may mirror primal chaos that has been associated with love in the past. Trust the process and contrast the chaos you felt in the past to the calmness you might feel now. Be present with it and focus on new sensations you might be experiencing, like safety. A lot of this boils down to paying attention to new feelings. Listen, after a narcissistic relationship, you may still hear their voice in your head, their narcissistic voice. It takes a long time for that to fade. If you were cheated on in your narcissistic relationship, you might find it very hard to trust. If you are with someone who is shady with their phone or social media, it can make that space feel really dicey and unsafe for you. If you are chronically gaslighted, you may be vigilant and on edge all the time, waiting for that to happen again. If you are compared to other people by your ex, you may be triggered by them doing that, even if they're not doing it in a toxic way. You may hear the echo of that old narcissistic voice saying the terrible things that it did to you. You're too sensitive. You're too needy. No one's ever going to put up with your stuff. Again, this is why the 12 months is so important. In 12 months, some of that can really fade. And if you get therapy during that 12 months, you are in a position to let more of that go. You may also be overinterpreting all of the signs. They didn't respond. They didn't get in touch with me to set another date. They didn't say goodnight. I know some cases when you're dating that may mean disengagement. In others, it may also be because it's just life. But the narcissistic relationship was so chaotic, so riddled with withholding and abandonment and inconsistency, that when anything that smacks of inconsistency or abandonment or withholding in a new relationship shows up, it may leave you feeling hopeless and with the sense that nothing will ever work out for you and you will be alone forever, which is obviously a terrible feeling. Then there is the bad feeling of how the narcissistic relationship went down, and especially if they moved on really quickly, which they often do. Narcissistic people are able to move into new relationships really fast because they're not capable of going deep in a relationship, but you are. Comparing yourself to them is like comparing a cat to a hummingbird. They have nothing in common. And relationally, you have very little in common with the narcissist. Now, it would be helpful if you went through and cleaned up your social media so you don't need to see their posts or hear about their new life, because even just doing that can help you fade out some of those memories. What are your friends in this process of trying to date after a narcissistic relationship? Foremost, like I said, is time, 12 months minimum. Or if the relationship lasted than 12 months, you want to spend the same amount of time single as you spent in the relationship. There are other things like mindfulness, taking it slow, and really paying attention to how you feel. Therapy, if you can, to grieve and work through what happened in the narcissistic relationship and to really break down and understand some of the patterns, such as trauma bonding. Taking a step back from the overly high-pressure friends who are pushing you to date too soon, cleaning up and spending less time on social media, being really, really careful with online dating because it does tend to be a space that's a little bit more high risk for folks who are coming out of narcissistic relationships. And focus not just on dating, but on doing, being in social spaces, getting to meet new friends, socializing with people you already know, finding your stride socially again. Put things in your calendar to look forward to. Healing from betrayal takes a minute, and no, there is nothing wrong with you if you feel scared about dating after what you've been through. In fact, I'd be shocked if you weren't. When people break a bone or have an injury of some kind, they get physical therapy before they can use that limb again, and this is no different. Your heart and soul need a minute, and you want to take care of them and you before you bring someone new into the mix. This time, you get to bring your intuition along when you start dating someone. This time, you can give yourself permission to slow it down if you want, And if the other person pushes back on you slowing it down, now you know that that's the high pressure gaslighting maneuver of rushing a relationship, and you know to step back. If your reality is doubted, you can step back. If it simply doesn't feel right, you can step back. Catch your justifications, because this time you can, and frankly you must, set the bar higher. But throughout this process, be kind to yourself. It can be terrifying to think about putting yourself back in a circumstance that once hurt you and bruised your soul. The bruises will heal, but the memories linger. If it feels that hard, it may not be the time yet. I have been a direct witness to the fantastic love stories that can come after someone gets out of a narcissistic relationship. And they almost always happened because people gave it time, took it slow, and gave themselves permission to be very discerning. And if you do go out there and it doesn't go smoothly, or you feel like, oh, I didn't pick right and I stayed around a little bit too long this time, I still bet you didn't stay as long as the first time. And that's progress. Thanks again.